One of the things I want to address, let's talk about the pillars at a high level. One, how critical the buy box is. The reason why I talk about if you're going to manage a deal, if you're going to buy a deal, if you're going to co-host a deal, if you're going to arbitrage a deal, there's certain specific criteria that I focus on that are key. And the reason why they're key in this is because they ended up being what was critical for their criteria. And so when we talk about these criteria, there's people on the other side who are looking for these kind of criteria, right? So it's very important that we don't just do what we want or manage the deals that we like. We want to manage or buy or purchase or arbitrage or co-host the kind of deals that will serve this group the best. And when I say the group, I mean the avatar that's being displaced, and factoring in all types of avatars that can be displaced. And I'll get to that in a second.
Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Experiment Nation, your host, Ruben Kanya here, tuning into a lab, another solo episode to go over some fundamentals of the behind the scenes of what is actually happening to real people, real human beings behind the midterm rental insurance space. So today I actually have a case study that brings everything full circle, because we can talk about it on paper, but until you have like a real kind of case study, a real story of someone who's experiencing firsthand being displaced due to a fire and going behind the scenes of the process. Today I want to go through that to really humanize the industry that we in, why we get paid a premium, why it's in our best interest to pick the right type of asset to put us in a position to serve, to then be able to capitalize and land these premium contracts. Because until you realize how prevalent this is, you might not even realize the impact that you're having on the other side. And really, it's heartwarming. And I believe that if you're able to solve big problems, you can be highly compensated for doing so, right? And so this you could make this up, guys. This is just to show you how prevalent this is. I'm hanging by the pool on literally yesterday, and I said I'd hop into the studio and record this right away while everything's top of mind, fresh in mind. And to even bring this full circle, you know what? I might have this gentleman come on the podcast because it was fascinating. So I'm hanging by the pool. Serendipitously, umbrella ends up flying away. I end up helping this gentleman, you know, with the resetting up the umbrella, etc. And then we start talking, and this is one of our complexes here, and he starts telling me about how he's living here in this apartment complex, and because his house burned down. Uh, and so he starts to tell me about the details that he's going through, how there was like 11 fire trucks that came, and etc., the whole behind the scenes. And then he starts telling me about his whole displacement experience, and he had no idea that this was the business that we're in. And so I actually took a second. I said, "Hey, by the way, just just so you know, this is we specialize in this kind of this displacement, relocation, temporary housing business, or we're in this sector of corporate housing where we work with the insurance company due to unforeseen events." And his face kind of lit up, because he's like, "What?" Like, he's gone through the process of he was calling it an adjuster. And I was like, "Public adjuster?" He's like, "Yeah, exactly." And then he kind of went in, and this is a guy, a finance guy, top of it, and he's a older gentleman, but he's been he was giving me even business advice, etc. But what was fascinating, about shout out to Bruce, was that he was able to really break down the entire experience from the time that the fire happened, from the time that he called the company that the fire department had told him that source from I think it was like an HVAC issue, and then these guys that do the periodic check came, and apparently there might be some kind of I forget what the terminology was that he used, where the insurance company might sue the maintenance people, whatever the case might be. But that's neither here nor there, right? More importantly, he was going through the process of what it was like. And then he was telling me first, we looked at extended stay, etc. And I'm like, so you worked with, an adjuster and all that stuff. And he said yes. And here are the options that they give us. And he talked what I want to highlight here is we talk a lot on the front end on how to optimize for contracts, etc. But my goal is to showcase what's happening on the other end as um, the policy holder, right? Their experience on the other side. And my goal is actually get Bruce on the podcast so he can talk through it, so you can kind of see where the pain points were. Because anytime you can identify where the pain points were, you can then truly understand how to position yourself to solve for those pain points, right? So why don't we get into it? One of the things I want to address are, let's talk about the pillars at a high level. One, how critical the buy box is. The reason why I talk about, if you're going to manage a deal, if you're going to buy a deal, if you're going to co-host a deal, if you're going to arbitrage a deal, there's certain specific criteria that I focus on that you'll see Bruce mentions that are key. And the reason why they're key in this is because uh, they ended up being what was critical for their criteria. And so when we talk about these criterias, there's people on the other side who are looking for these kind of criterias, right? So it's very important that we don't just do what we want, or manage the deals that we like. We want to manage or buy or purchase or arbitrage or co-host the kind of deals that will serve this group the best. And when I say the group, I mean the avatar that's being displaced, and factoring in all types of avatars that can be displaced. And I'll get to that in a second. One, how prevalent this is. Like, this is a casual Saturday by the pool. You would have no idea. And what I'm trying to tell you is that there is multiple of these instances. As a matter of fact, I get calls all the time where people run across, hey, I ran across this person that needed relocation because of this problem, and I thought of you first, etc. And I'm like, this is happening by the pound. Like, it's crazy, right? So prevalent, right? So it's the buy box is important. How prevalent it is. The loss of use. It always goes back to the loss of use, which this time Bruce literally said, come on over. I will show you my insurance policy and let's have a look at what it says, because you're very knowledgeable and it sounds like you know what you're talking about. So therefore I want to hear it from you. And we went over that, right? And then the premium that he's paying for to be displaced, why it's a premium, how he was able to get relocated for a premium, and why he's even able to do that with respect to his policy. We want to cover it. And then the behind the scenes is what's happening to a family. I think this is very important for us to understand. We're still in the hospitality space. This is why we go above and beyond, because there's humans on the other side. There's an emotional factor. I can tell you about more of that later, because we've actually housed a lot of people with fires, and there's a lot of trauma with fires. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of just unfortunate things that happen behind the scenes that you should be privy to if you want to be able to serve that avatar and understand why it's really important to go above and beyond for them. And then even the process behind the scenes on the corporate side of like trying to fix the issue or address the issue, return the items, etc., or at least repurchase the item with respect to the value. Some items not being able to be very clear on the value based on the time that it was bought. Like, there's so many nuances behind the scenes. It's fascinating. All right. So let's start with this. So let's start with the buy box. Okay. So these four pillars we'll go in order. So so I have a specific buy box that I, always encourage investors to cater to. And one of the things that I just was talking to my partners about this, because you're looking to, acquire more properties, and say, hey, Ruben, which one of these is a deal breaker? Okay. And that's, an answer that is not straightforward, because, not all features or as part of your buy box are created equal. As a matter of fact, I'm actually going to pull up the text, because I had actually put what I believe is a tier together that will help people like yourself who's listening understand how I look at my buy box, and on different levels, and why I look at it that way. And and why you should look at it that way too. Okay, so let's talk about it. So, who is Bruce and his lovely wife Cynthia? They were relocated due to a fire, and when they were looking to relocate, they were looking for two key things. They wanted queen beds. They needed to access something on the ground floor due to their physical disability. They're on the older side, therefore, canes, etc. He has even a lift at his previous home. So these are the reasons why when I talk about my buy box, first of all, we focus on single family homes because if someone's coming from a single family home, which is where they were coming from, they're gonna look to have an a a like kind of property, right? As a matter of fact, he mentioned when he was speaking to the, I think it was one of the public adjusters or the relocation specialists, etc. He was made aware that there was three divisions, and it brought a smile to my face because it's exactly those three divisions that we often talk about, or maybe this is your first time hearing. But there's three divisions in relocation. There's the apartments, there's the hotel, and then there's the single families, right? And apartments, that's like corporate housing 101. People who do apartments all day. They, when you think of apartments, it's kind of it's easier to scale for corporations to have X amount of units dedicated to this kind of corporate housing. So there's an apartment division. Then there's a single family division, which is the one we supply. We like that because we're giving a better product and therefore can charge a premium for it. If you're going to relocate somebody from a single family home to an apartment, probably not as ideal because remember, temporary being relocated for the next 6 to 8 months. As a matter of fact, anywhere from 8 months to a year and a half is what it can take to rehab, especially fires. They're going to want to relocate somewhere that's like you're not bringing someone from a single family home to an apartment unless they agree to it, which you can always downsize, but it's not an ideal situation, right? So this is why we like the single family space. This also works in apartments as well, but please keep in mind these three divisions. Then there's the hotel. That's like the extended stays of the world. That's like a Marriott here and there, where that's more of the temporary housing solution, which is exactly what he talked about, right? When he was relocated, they put him in a hotel first, stayed for a couple weeks, tried to find alternative solutions for longer stay. Keep in mind the first line of defense when it comes to relocating a family, fire happened on Tuesday night. By Tuesday night, that same night, they can relocate in a hotel, or by Wednesday morning, they'll be relocated in a hotel until we find an interim solution for them. So this is what this space is all about. And this space is we're talking about positioning ourselves and becoming the supply to the single family homes, right? So now what happens when I buy this single family home? What am I looking for? Well, one of the things that I have on the first bullet that I have on my list is the master on main. Why do I want the master on main? As a matter of fact, we just didn't went to an open house yesterday. Master on main. It was actually not even a master on main. It was a guest house on, not guest house, guest room on main with its bathroom off the corner. That's important because imagine, not imagine, you don't have to imagine. This is the real thing. But you have a family that's looking to relocate in your zip code and they have a walker or they have a wheelchair or or maybe they got bad knees, right? And this is just, or maybe there's just a physical disability on one of the kids or anything. Um, as a matter of fact, I've gotten this request. Right, we had this on our home that has a split level, which we don't love, but it was just the one feature that it didn't have as part of the buy box, but it had three steps in the home. That can be a deal breaker for someone, right? So we want an ideal situation, the master to be on the main, right? If not, guest a room on the main that can be used as the master. It doesn't really matter if you have all these other things that can't be accessed on the second floor or third floor or even on the basement, but can someone live at the home without having to access the second floor or the basement? If so, that's what I mean by the equivalent of a master on main, because it means that I can have a family that doesn't need to worry about having to access the washer, dishwasher, or well, obviously washer and dishwasher would be on the same floor. Usually in the kitchen floor, which is on the main floor, right? I don't know too many homes that have kitchens on the second floor, but you never know if you have a split level, right? So everything on the main floor, can you the dryer, washing machine on that floor, and that's what you want. You want the main priority. Can someone live there without having to access second floor? So yes, we bought a lot of bungalows because we like them. houses on a slab. Well, actually, no, we actually like houses with basements, but I can still have a home that is accessible by not having to go upstairs or downstairs, right? And that's the key when I say master on main, right? You have to think about, is there a walk-in shower? That's easy. That's easier for someone who has any physical disability, right? No stairs, right? No stairs. Keep in mind, even if there's just 3 steps at the front door, that could be just another a challenge to overcome, because now I'm a walker, I have to take 3 steps up. So you want to avoid all those steps. And guess what? That is exactly what Bruce and his wife were able to get at this apartment complex, which was one of the largest suites. And it had about 2 to 3 different rooms, accessible on the ground level, closest to the entrance, everything that we talk about in single family homes. So you couldn't make this up. This isn't something that I'm coming up just for myself. This is something that is very real. As he's speaking to me, I'm literally smiling because I'm like, you are reiterating the importance of everything. That's important, right? Um, so that's that. Another thing that we do, so we like no stairs. We like to have a garage because people have cars. Fenced in backyard, so it's pet friendly. We actually just recently built another fence for one of our properties because it had dogs, and they're there until for the next couple months. Now the back deck, you always want to check the area, location, and then the vibe check. Shout out to areavibes.com, gives a good score. We like to have a score higher than 65. Air DNA, same thing, more than 15% occupancy, more than 50%. 15% of the purchase price is what you can gross in revenue, and more than 50% occupancy for that market. Occupancy is what we like. So those are just things in the buy box that are important, right? And so now the question that I had from one of my partners around this topic is important is, well, Ruben, which one of these are actually a deal breaker? Okay, so I'll tell you what's the deal breaker for me. Very straightforward, very simple for you to remember. This is what I call level 0, okay? Like the foundation, ground level. If the home or property, condo, for the interest of this, when I say home, you know what I mean, right? Whether you're owning the home, co-hosting the home, arbitraging the home, um, managing the home, for the interests of what I'm talking about, whether it's an apartment or complex or condo, we like single family, so I refer it to a home. For me, it's a deal breaker wherever you are, whatever type of asset type that you have. The one that I like, 4 to 5 bedroom plus. It's a deal breaker if it's an HOA. If it is an HOA, okay, um, that's a housing organization association. They have fees. They have rules that they can change. They have a board that can vote things to change very quickly. They do special assessments, which I don't like, which means that you literally could be like, hey, we're all changing roofs. Everyone's getting billed this bill of $5,000 or $10,000 right now. This instance, there's a fees, and fees tend to never go down. They only go up. So for me, I don't want you to be in a position where you're in an HOA and you have to adhere to the new HOA regulations. They can, and most importantly, here's the number one reason why I don't want an HOA. Because if they say short-term rentals are not allowed here, this kills my exit strategy. When we do not have contracts, because we can never, be, forecast and know exactly that we're going to be able to land contracts back to back to back to back. We want to be able to do short-term rentals to fill for any vacancies. Okay. That is my rule of thumb. So I can't stress this enough. For me, HOA or SDRs are not allowed, or there's a 30-day minimum in the HOA regulations. For me, it's a hard no. You can do what you want, but for me, it is a hard no. And I advise my partners, my students to do the same. It's a hard no. Now, if you're in a situation where you're currently living in HOA already and you have to live with what you currently have, that is what I specialize in. Live with what you have, start getting creative. One of the things that I like to get creative on is having a corporate lease for a year, and then that corporation is allowed to rent out on a short-term basis, right? That is up to you. You can speak to your lawyer about it. You can speak to your board, or you could just, again, ask for forgiveness and not permission. But that would be one of the workarounds that I would suggest. However, I don't even want to go against the grain. I don't want to go against the rules. I don't want to have to tiptoe around the HOA by any means. So therefore, I stay away from it like the plague. Okay. Experiment Nation, you've heard the word MTR, mid-term rentals, as it is currently a hot topic and hot commodity right now, because
Again, there has been an increase in short term rental regulations, and there also has been, let's face it, a slowdown in what we were experiencing a couple years back when it comes to bookings. So, with that said, short term rental operators are looking for alternative solutions to tap into the mid term rental space. However, there is a sub niche of midterm rental insurance that I'm truly excited about, that I want to share with you, that the experience that we've had, the tremendous results we've been able to have, and that's the insurance midterm rental space, which is very different than your traditional midterm rentals. When you think of traditionally midterm rentals, you think of travel nurses. There is a space, midterm rental insurance space, that we've tapped in, where you need to be well connected with insurance and relocation specialists and companies, and understand the right type of asset required for you to be able to help these families. What's really important, that stands out the most, which you can get in what I'm about to offer you, is the understanding where to be found by these insurance companies, how to properly manage your calendar so that your listings are optimized so that they can find you, how to actually gain traction and build a relationship with these relocation insurance companies. I've put together an MTR insurance blueprint. That's double MT triple R insurance blueprint to cover these foundations after we've had success landing very large contracts on single family homes that literally 4x what we traditionally make in long-term rentals, and also gives us peace of mind because there's less turnover and 100% occupancy, because these contracts can start anywhere from 30 days to 3 months to 8 months, and range anywhere from, again, we've landed anywhere from $8,000 to $9,000 a month in per month on a single family home property, which our mortgages are typically around the 2,400 range, which then gives you a large spread of anywhere from 4 to 6K net on just one property. And this is why it's very hot right now. But people who haven't been in the lab with individuals like myself, like Jesse Vasquez and Dr. Rachel Gainsborough and Noble Crawford, don't have the foundations and don't know exactly where to start. And therefore, this is why I'm giving you guys a blueprint, the MTRR insurance blueprint. Go to the website experimentrealestate.com and get yourself a blueprint to completely change, or at least have a plan B if you're a short-term rental operator looking to maximize your occupancy and profitability. We'll see you on the other side.
That's level 0. So for me, it's a deal breaker. All these other things are all have to, with respect to the buy box, all depend. It's on a deal basis, but I'll tell you what's level 1 for me, as in very important. Location is always going to be primal, right? It's real estate. It doesn't change a thing. Just because we're doing MTRs with the combination of STR doesn't mean that the rules of real estate go out the window. It's so critical for us to still be in a position where the location is prime. What is a prime location? For me, you got to be 20 minutes from the city. You got to have different influx of traffic, from universities to hospitals to convention centers to even a sub market, like a good example is like an area that has shopping centers, restaurants, etc. Its own kind of like little sub market, um, or metro city, or whatever the case might be. But I still want to be close to the city. Okay, location, still number 1 for me. That's level 1. I could almost say it's a deal breaker, but that's too nuanced to call it a deal breaker if you're in a bad location. So that to me is level 1. Uh, Level 1, another level 1 buy box criteria is the 4 bedroom plus. We own homes that are 3 bedrooms. Not many, but 4 or 5 is the sweet spot. So the reason why I say, hey, Ruben, how come you own a 3 bedroom? Well, because the deal made sense. It was a really good deal, so it wasn't a deal breaker. But ideally, I want more 4 to 5 bedroom homes because I can host more and I can charge more and I can have flexibility. Right? Home has to be accessible on the ground floor. That's another level 1 requirement. Level 1, master on main level 1. That's huge for the silver tsunami that's going to be coming, which is, there's going to be more old folks around than young folks. So you want to cater to those knees, to those backs. You don't want to cater to those with physical disabilities, right? Or physical limitations, right? Whatever that case might be, right? Level 2. So again, I'm stacking, right? Ground level 0, level 1, level 2, fenced in backyard. Uh, well, now the thing is, it's not a deal breaker if your home doesn't have a fenced in backyard, because you can just get a quote for it and add it, right? So for me, that's a level 2. Garage, I would even say fenced in backyard could be a level 3, right? Just like a walk-in shower, if it's not there, that's a level 3, because in my eyes, you can always add those later for, anything that's less than a $5,000 cost. I mean, now a fence will start, depending on like how much fence you need to cover, it could run you up a little bit more, but it's still something you can add later without changing the entire infrastructure of the home. So I would actually move fence in backyard to level 3. But let's focus on level 2. Level 2 garage. Adding a garage might not be even feasible. So I want to buy a home with a garage, or at least a carport. Uh you can't add a basement to a home. So I want the basement. It's just extra inventory, right? Real estate goes vertically. You already bought the land, right? If you have additional land underneath, that's ground level access. To me, that is a very, very, very desirable feature to have. All right, because I'm for the same land, like, square footage isn't factored into a basement. To a basement isn't even factored into the square footage. It's just additional bonus room, and because we have extra living rooms, extra entrances, we can turn that into a duplex down the road, or triplex. You can turn it into a a additional space where people can stay, right? If you buy a 3-2, but it has 2 bedrooms downstairs, and a bedroom is considered a home, a bedroom on paper is considered a home that has a closet. Even if those don't have closets and have dressers, those are rooms where you can sleep people. So for me, you bought a 3-2, a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, but really you have a 5-2, and maybe there's a bathroom down there. So now you have a 5-3. That's just bonus room. You now just bought a 5 bedroom home for the price of a 3 bedroom home, right? So for me, that is the hack, and that is critical for. Or I would even put that as level 1, but I understand that those are not deal breakers, right? Sorry, not deal breakers, but that's the reason why I have a level 2, is you could still buy a home that's 4 bedroom home with no garage or no basement and still be gravy. But I like them. I like them. I like them. Like them so much. But that's still level 2. Basement is level 2. Back decks the level 2 for entertainment design. We love back decks. We're always hanging on back decks. We eat on them. It's great for short-term rentals. It increases value, increases in amenity, increases as an entertainment factor. And when you're running that hybrid play, doing the STR to fill in for the vacancies while you're optimizing for MTR contract, a back deck is always a huge asset. People want to hang outside, people want to grill. If you don't have a back deck or a backyard, that to me is a huge, huge disadvantage. And why would I buy, or in your case, you could be buying or managing or co-hosting or arbitraging a unit that doesn't have a back deck? I'm just, keep in mind these criteria. We want to put our best foot forward. That's all this is. This is the best foot forward strategy criteria, right? If you want to go against it, you just know that you're not putting your best foot forward. But that's all that this is. It's the best foot forward. Level 3, walk-in shower. Level 3, walk-in shower, fence in backyard. Those I would say are the 3 levels. Call it 4 if you include level 0, which is the no HOA. That's the deal breaker. That's the foundation. But those are the 3 levels that I live by. Right. That's it. So it was fascinating to see that for this case, in Bruce's case, that again, the buy box criteria serves its need again. If you had a master on main or ground level floor, the way we call it in level 1 that I talk about, home accessible on the first floor, you would have been able to cater to Bruce. If you didn't, you wouldn't have been able to cater to Bruce and Cynthia, his wife Cynthia, right? So that's important, right? Prevalent. I'm hanging by the pool, guys, and this happens. I didn't seek it out. This just shows you how, I don't know what the statistics are, but I'd be very confident to know that, or to believe that, for every, I don't know, for every 10 people that you see, one out of them has either encountered a displacement or is encountering one currently, which means that if you position yourself for this, you might be like, really, this is very super ultra niched. Yeah. And there's super ultra lack of availability. And that's why we're serving this need. Right. So it's very prevalent. That's the prevalence, right? Loss of use. So then, look, action takers are money makers. And what I liked about Bruce, he's like, hey, Ruben, let's have a look at the policy right now. Come on down. So I went over, walked to his place, saw the unit, everything ground level, everything accessible. They use a third-party company to, because I asked them, like, did they give you a furnished unit? I'm like, no, they use a third party company, not they as in the public adjuster, the relocation company. And then I'm like, do you know the name? I still haven't gotten the name, but I know a big one is Court, CORT.com, Court.com. They're big on that, but it's fascinating to see it in real time. I was looking at furniture. We'll probably have to do a walkthrough with this. It's very, very interesting, right? We'll probably do a podcast because I have access to this gentleman. But most importantly, I picked up his policy and I told him, hey, listen, do you know how long your run rate is? They told him he had as long as he needed, very flexible. And I said, do you know what your loss of use is? He said, I'm not sure, but now you're making me nervous in case you mentioned I might not run out of money. I'm like, no, I'm not saying you might run out of money. I'm just saying I always like to educate people like yourselves to know your rights based on what is on your policy, because sometimes some of these companies might try to shortchange you and be like, hey, you're running out of money now, it's time for you to get out. And so it's in your best interest to know what the loss of use is. He said, I'm not familiar with it, let's have a look at the document. Looked at his document. It was literally the third page. You pull your insurance policy, you can have a look at it yourself as well. Coverage D, loss of use, was right there. And you know what it said? You ready? So the dwelling value was around $347,000 to replace. I think his home was worth about just $500,000 or so. As a matter of fact, I thought I wrote it down. Let me see what it says on Zillow. I like to do this in real time, y'all. Let's see what this house is worth on Zillow. Okay. Okay, so let's see. So I'm gonna look up the address. And okay, so what am I doing right now? So if you're watching this, you might be like, what is he doing? I'm just, so what I'm doing is I'm typing in the address based on location, and I'm putting it in Zillow. Now, what's interesting is this is an off-market property. It's saying that the property is worth $672,000. He told me it must have been worth around $500,000. So let's see what Redfin says. Let's see. There's two things that I want to highlight here, right, that are important. Number one is when you go on Zillow, what you're getting is the value of not only the home, but also the land. Because when you're selling home, you're selling the home and the land. So when you look on the coverage D, it's going to have, I don't know why this is not going fast. So what you're going to end up seeing is a value, and that value is like the Zillow estimator value, right? And so it's important for you to understand that there's home values, right? And then there's land values. But when you look at Zillow or Redfin or whatever, realtor.com, they're going to have baked in both. When you're selling a home both for the home value and the dwelling value. The coverage D is going to take 20 to 25% of the dwelling value. So in this case, we saw the dwelling value was $347,000 or so, and that's going to be in coverage A. It's literally coverage A, B, C, D, E, right? I'll show you, right? So coverage D is usually anywhere from 20 to 25% of that. In his case, what was interesting in their case is that it said the coverage D was, you ready? Ding, 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 ding. Actual loss incurred. That we love because it means we can run it up. It means that they can relocate for however much it costs. They are covered. So shout out to Liberty Mutual. That was a Liberty Mutual policy. And now let's talk about that for a second. So I don't know what his mortgage was currently on that home, but I can find out. But anyways, I know that the rentals were the complex that we're in, we're going for like 35, 36, 3,700, 38, and he's paying $6,000 a month. He's not paying it, his insurance company is paying it for as long as they need. That is why we go in this space, because we are able to provide availability for, again, they had talked about, they had seen extended stay, didn't like the product, didn't have the queens. They were very particular into what they wanted. And that is what happens when someone inquires about your place. They've probably looked at other places and they're not happy. They're looking for the right thing so that when they find the right home for them, that they'll stay in for the next 8 to a month to a year and a half or so, or even less or more. They're happy with it. And their insurance company is going to pay. Right. And so when you think about all these things of why do we finish with the deck? why do we have, why do we like to finish as if we're on Airbnb? It's because we want a good product that someone's going to look at and be like, wow, I really want to stay here. And I'm so glad I get to stay here for the next 10 to 12 months or whatever the case might be, longer. So in this case, they found uh, uh, unfurnished accommodation. It was furnished by the company, which I don't know how much they're paying. Actually, I have to get those details. We'll get Bruce on the pod for sure. But they're paying $6,000 a month. That's double what this rental rates go for in this area. And they got the premium biggest suite, with accessible to ground, etc. And what is a 3-story kind of apartment complex. So the behind the scenes is pretty interesting because that goes back to the whole premium and why we position ourselves to capture those premiums, and it's for those reasons. Now let's talk about the behind the scenes. One of the behind the scenes that was very interesting was hearing their experience of how fire trucks had come. Then you get a team that basically assesses all the damage, what's salvageable and what is not, and then they start itemizing, right? And they said, you could make this up, they had they had like 2,000 worth of items on there. uh he also mentioned that there's a little bit of a hoarding issue going on, but at the same time, that's what happens when you live someplace for 40 years or so plus. But keep in mind that they're itemizing all these items based on the value of the similar like kind item, and then they're giving you I'm talking about the insurance company, is giving you a 70% of depreciated value, and when you buy it, then they give you the other 30%. And that's so you don't get like a check and then just like decide not to buy things again. They give it to you once you actually repurchase the thing that's assessed, and they'll give you the delta. So it's very interesting. But they were talking about like things that are not metal or glass or etc. Like fabric that have smoke and etc. Just right off damaged, and it's hard for things that don't have um it's hard for things that don't have uh i guess everything has value towards it, but um anything that goes missing that you can't claim, like it gets very interesting. He was even telling me about his violin that he took there that was salvaged, or that was saved. And then he talked about some what's it called, some kind of insurance rider that you can add to things like that. It's like attached or something like that. That if it were to go missing, you get the full amount. Versus if it doesn't, it's hard for you to be able to claim it, etc. But in short, I say all that to say this: there's some real people behind the scenes, and what they were telling me is that there was a little bit of frustration because well, they itemize things, then they've taken some things to storage that are salvageable. Then there's also an exhaustive list of things that need to be repurchased. But then there's things with sentimental value that you can't repurchase, or they'll try to repurchase it, but it's like it's not the same china that you had, etc. But there's a whole process of someone having to go there and count every single item to itemize to then be able to give a level of reimbursement after the things are repurchased. I mean, can you imagine 40 years worth of stuff? You have to now repurchase it. You have to put a dollar value next to anything. I mean, this is all happening. I say all that to say this. This is all happening outside of the home being rebuilt, which could take another, not another, but the 12 months in itself. Outside of all this is also the repurchasing of assets that have been damaged, right? I mean, and so keep in mind, I mean, if these goods need to be also repurchased, etc., reordered back into the home. Now, when the home is ready, home move and ready, they might get the essentials back, etc. And so maybe that, that's at that point when there's the approval of, hey, you guys are clear to go home. But if it's not, this also factors into your extension time as a host. So keep in mind, when you get a notice to extend, notice to extend, notice to extend, notice to extend, it's because there's so many things happening behind the scenes of getting the home back up to a livable condition, reordering the key items that is needed, right? Maybe a lift chair was damaged and that needs to be reordered. The specific one, the same value one, and that needs to be reinstalled into that new home. And that you're dealing with the vendor, you're dealing with procurement, you're dealing with all these things behind the scenes that are happening, that it's important for us to understand how it works, because this is what's happening behind the scenes, and this is why you might not be clear on why someone starts with a month and then extends to 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 5 and then 6 and 7 and 8. These are real people behind the scenes. We have a woman who lost her husband in a fire in one of our homes. Like, this is real life stuff. So you're not just you're in hospitality, you're in corporate housing, you're dealing with real people on the other side who are extremely thankful, by the way, because you are an option to them and they're dealing with a lot, right? So when we get these contracts, right, it's important to understand, or at least when you see these contracts, it's important to understand the magnitude of the problem that you're solving and why you're being able to be paid a premium. Because if we miss that, then we miss the whole thing. And the beautiful thing about real estate is that there's niches within niches, and this is why we choose this one, because we like corporate housing, B2B, serving insurance companies and their clients. And their clients are grateful to be working with us, and we're grateful to be working with them. It's important for us to understand that there's people on the other side, but it's also important to understand how we can best serve them with respect to the buy box, with respect to understanding how prevalent this is, with respect to their loss of use, with respect to the premium they can charge for that, with respect to their lives behind the scenes of their involvement, that you get a chance to be a part of the solution. Excuse me, a solution to the problem they're trying to solve. All right. So with that said, Experiment Nation, uh, be the servant in your community. It's a great niche to be in. It's a super rewarding one. I will try to get Bruce. Not try it. I will get Bruce on the show. I think it'll be great to cover a lot of the behind the scene details, timelines, company, like corporation that they used, etc. His adjuster, all these things that we can get behind the scenes on, because I think it's great to see both sides and understand, because now we understand the business better. And now you understand what I mean when I say this is why I stick to my buy box, because I understand the problem at hand. So now you understand it too, and now power is to you. For those, if you're listening to this and you're getting tons of value, like, hey, I need a guide. I do have a mastermind group. I have several programs that I've launched. So make sure that you reach out by going to experimentrealestate.com and filling out the form on the website for if you're interested in joining one of my masterminds. You can go to, I'm actually pulling it up in real time, for coaching. Just click the Inner Circle Mastermind, because when you fill out that form, it'll give my team a better idea of where you're at, so I can kind of give you the guidance. Inner Circle is our biggest mastermind. Then I do have a little different breakout services and programs that can also help you with respect to where you are in your journey. So make sure you go to experimentrealestate.com, click coaching drop down and Inner Circle Mastermind, and fill out that form, and we'll be able to see how we can best help you. But again, we are helping other investors, helping other as we're helping other investors help others find a place to stay, families, and being represented by corporations, so that you can increase your occupancy and profitability with less headaches. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about. It's about serving a big problem. It's about creating a win-win situation. It's about you being profitable on the other side while doing so. So with that said, thanks for tuning in. If you're listening to this, whether you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. If you're listening to this on podcast or iTunes, hit the follow button and leave us a review. It's extremely helpful, and that's more investors like you who are interested in these kind of show, or in this kind of show, or if you've been listening for a while and you still haven't done it, it means the world to me, because I understand that there's people on the other side benefiting from this, and then I can continue to pour in, which I will do on the areas and questions that you have. With that said, Experimentation, thank you for tuning in. And just like that, we are out. Experiment Nation
Podcasting has changed the way we operate. My team can help you launch your podcast.